On the first day of Eid, more funerals are being held in Gaza. The Hamas Health Ministry now saying 83 people have died since the fighting began with Israel on Monday, including 17 children. In Israel, 7 people have been killed. It has been another night of intense bombardments both inside Gaza and Israel. The Israeli military saying it's now expanding its targets for airstrikes, and its ground troops are continuing to amass on its boundary with Gaza. In Israel, continued rocket fire from Hamas and other factions has forced thousands of Israelis to take shelter once again. In mixed Arab and Jewish cities, violence has broken out between the communities. We can show you the scene, the live picture we have now from Gaza City this morning. It is looking peaceful there at the moment, but we'll bring you an update very shortly on what has happened so far this morning. For now, though, Courtney Bembridge has this report for you and a warning that there are some flashing images.
It was another night of explosions in Gaza City as heavy Israeli airstrikes and Palestinian rocket fire continued. In the Tel Aviv suburb of Lod, Palestinian protesters torched a synagogue and confronted motorists.
They heard that my accent was not Arab, ran up to my car and they started throwing stones. I was lucky that there were no cars behind, so I reversed. I drove full gas in reverse. I almost ran into people and cars. I didn't see anything. I saw death. Death. Do you know what death is? People jumping at me with stones, throwing stones at me.
In nearby Petah Tikva, this residential building was hit by a Palestinian rocket. The Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has vowed to stop the violence.
This is anarchy. Nothing can justify it. And I will tell you more than that. Nothing can justify a lynching of Jews by Arabs, and nothing can justify a lynching of Arabs by Jews. We will not accept this. This is not us, not this violence, not this savagery. We will bring back governance to Israel's cities everywhere, in all cities.
World leaders have also called for calm, and the US President Joe Biden spoke to Benjamin Netanyahu over the phone.
My expectation and hope is that this will be closing down sooner than later. But Israel has a right to defend itself when you have thousands of rockets flying into your territory.
The US is sending a top diplomat to the Middle East to try to de-escalate the conflict, but the Palestinian leader is standing firm.
I direct my speech, especially to America and Israel. We are fed up. Go away from us. Leave us. We will stay like a thorn in your eyes. We will never leave our country. End your occupation today before tomorrow.
The clashes may have started in Jerusalem, but they've now spread across the country, and it may be too late to contain the anger. Courtney Bembridge, BBC News.
Well, let's bring you right up to date, take you straight to Jerusalem and join our diplomatic correspondent Paul Adams, who is there for us. Paul, what's been happening this morning?
Well, actually, Lucy, this morning things are relatively calm. And in fact, we had the spectacle this morning of tens of thousands of Palestinians gathering at the Al-Aqsa Mosque compound not far from here in Jerusalem for the prayers to mark the end of Ramadan, and those prayers passed off peacefully. But certainly, as your report said, that overnight this was another night of sustained violence with a lot more rockets being aimed at Israel from the Gaza Strip, some of those rockets being fired quite deep into the country, and waves of Israeli airstrikes against quite a broad range of Hamas targets. And we're hearing also reports suggesting that the Israeli military is doing what it takes to prepare for a ground operation. I don't think that decision has been taken, and it won't be taken lightly, because everyone knows that if troops go in on the ground in Gaza, the consequences of that can be extremely bloody. But I think the Israeli military is keen to send a warning to Hamas that there could be worse to come.
Paul, thanks so much for that update. Paul Adams there, joining us from Jerusalem with the very latest. Let's talk now to Amnon Berari-Soluziano, who is in Tel Aviv. He is the CEO of the Arab Initiatives, a group promoting integration and equality for Jewish and Arab Israeli citizens based in Lod. And you'll know that we've seen street violence in towns in Israel between Jews and Israeli Arabs that has spread beyond Lod, but that is where it first started. So we're very interested to get your thoughts. And I wonder how you are feeling today about some of the things that you are witnessing.
So the bottom line is that we are extremely, extremely worried. All of those who are worried about the integrity of Israeli society and coexistence between the Jewish majority and Palestinian minority within Israel. There are 20% Israeli citizens who are Palestinians, and everything seems to fall apart. There are thousands and thousands of meeting points between Jews and Arabs within Israel, in universities and colleges, in shopping centers, in workplaces, NGOs, government ministries. And those contact points are becoming very dangerous. There are confrontations, hostilities, actions of lynch coming from one community towards another. And this is very, very stressful. The feeling is that we are deteriorating into a situation that reminds us all of the Balkans years ago. That's very troubling.
Indeed it is. I'm seeing so many people saying the conflict this time does feel very, very different. Are people really incredibly worried now about what all this could lead to?
Yes, but the brighter side of things is that we also see manifestations of unity, of coexistence, and the strive for shared society between Jews and Arabs. From very early today, from the early morning hours, we have seen dozens of letters and statements made by various groups coming from various organizations demonstrating unity. And people say, you know, we stand together and no one will split us. And, you know, as a civil society activist for many years, I can tell you that it feels as if our, you know, the fabric or the ties that we have all built between Jews and Arabs in Israel can survive. You know, we can overcome this crisis and eventually even strengthen the ties between Jews and Arabs. So who knows, you know, every day that the crisis continues between Israel and Gaza, there is a danger that it will be harder to recover from the situation inside of Israel. But if the hostilities between Israel and its neighbors on the border will stop soon, then the damage is recoverable. We will be able to recover.
But do many Arab Israelis feel that some of this anger, it isn't new? This reflects systematic, ongoing discrimination and neglect that they feel they've suffered for years?
Yes, severe underdevelopment, neglect, discrimination on the grassroots level and in policy and government and legislation. The nation-state law that was passed at the Knesset recently is very damaging to the status of the Arab community, and people simply are not accepting it, and they're right not to accept it. We are citizens and everyone deserves their rights on equal terms. People in Israel are also, Palestinians in Israel are also extremely worried about human rights violations and Israeli policies in the West Bank and vis-a-vis Gaza. And, you know, their relatives, sometimes friends and families live across the border, and they simply cannot sit quiet when they see those bloody confrontations. They are caught between the rock and the hard place, so to speak. They are Israeli and Palestinian at the same time, and it's very hard for many of them to navigate those, you know, this dual identity.
Mr. Soluziano, very important to get your thoughts and good to hear from you. Thank you so much for joining us on Tel Aviv.
Thank you very much.